Shared services, there is nothing new since the last meeting. There will be a vote on November 7th about forming a committee to study shared services, and the current committee itself has not met in the last month. Personally, I would urge people to vote for the studying of this. It's like a no-brainer. There is no downside and only upside, as far as I can tell.
Trustee Rosen, the public is confused when people refer to that as a shared services study. It's not. It is a study to look at the consolidation of South Orange and Maplewood, and if they recommend a consolidation of the towns, to make certain recommendations with respect to the form of government. If they determine not to recommend in favor of consolidating the community, they may then, but are not required, to make recommendations with respect to shared or regionalized services.
I respect what you're saying, but I tend to think that basically it will be a commission to study either the merger or shared services between the communities.
That committee's charge, assuming that it passes in both towns, will be to study the merger of South Orange and Maplewood. That's what they're supposed to do. And if they determine that they're not going to recommend that after they conduct their study, then they can make recommendations if they want on the issue of shared services.
And the other question I have too is, did anybody look into the financial part of this and how much it's going to cost and what type of professional is going to be needed to make this particular committee function properly?
Mr. Calvary, what happens is that committee, assuming it passes in both towns, that committee will meet, I think it's within 10 days, and they then propose a budget. That budget will then come back to the two municipalities. The municipalities will approve a spending amount from those municipalities. The way the statute is set up, the state can contribute some money, and I'm told from people that they expect the state's going to contribute a significant percentage of it. But in the end, if the state doesn't come up, or if the committee has a budget that goes beyond what the state's willing to do, then the municipalities have to do it. And it's done on a pro rata basis. The shared services we've done so far has been 50-50. On this, it's not done 50-50. It's done on the basis of essentially the real estate values. So Maplewood would pay 57% of the cost, we pay roughly 43, whatever the percentage numbers are. And then they may determine what they want to do, but if the two governing bodies, for example, say you have $50,000, then they have to live within $50,000. They don't get to set up a budget of $1 million, and then if the towns don't fund it, still spend $1 million. They can only spend within the limits that the town.
Well, I'm not going to prejudge the budget, but I read in the newspaper, which is the only source that I have, that they were estimating that the cost would be somewhere between $50,000 to $100,000.
They got an estimate from one of the consultants who said that the effective would cost around $80, so it gives you $50 to $100. And the share grant, which is theoretically available according to court-signed staff, is still 50-50 split, and they're going, and we expect to see $40,000 to $50,000 from the share grant. And I think also in relation to the study, if both towns pass, the state has to appoint an employee of the state that serves on that as a consultant for 5 months. I think it is.
The state has to do two things. They appoint somebody who sits as a non-voting member of the committee, as a resource for the committee, and the state is also supposed to do a fiscal, that's FISCAL study, which basically is going to bring in all of the numbers, crunch all of the numbers, and then come up with certain.
I think it's very clear, and I think if the public votes to go ahead with this, I think there'll be a reasonable expectation that the board would not hold it up and vote an appropriate amount for the budget. I don't think it'd be appropriate that it passes, and then we try to kill it by killing the budget. So, that'd be my opinion.
I had a question. We have done a study in Maplewood and South Orange that Fehrenbach was the name of that he came with certain recommendations. Is that new commission going to benefit from that?
They benefit from that. They can use Mr. Fehrenbach going forward, or they can pick someone else. But there was also a study, an initial study done by the Shared Services Study by Dan Mason, Jersey Professional Group, or whatever the name was, and he actually did a preliminary study which showed what a merger, what the savings could be for a town of 40,000 people. It wasn't specific. It didn't go into any specifics. And the group could use that if they wanted, if they choose to. And it's all public information.
Presumably, then, both studies.
All right.
That were done by Mr. Fehrenbach later, where we studied the health area and the recreation area.
And how much did we pay him for that study?
So, Fehrenbach or Mason?
Well, whatever we have numbers for.
We spent 30,000, I think each town spent 30,000.
Right, so that was $60,000 to tell us about the health department. I remember at one time. Well, I'm just saying. 30, okay. And how much did we spend when we studied the fire department? I think we had even West Orange involved in it. Remember West Orange?
Fire department was Milburn, Maplewood, and South Orange, and
That was the Buracker report.
Right. And what did that cost us?
That was the Buracker report.
yeah, and the recommendation was in favor of it, but then Milburn pulled out and then Maplewood pulled out. Maplewood's idea was always that shared services and fire would be that they provide services to us. We've also looked at courts with Maplewood, and they came to the conclusion against consolidating the courts. We obviously have a shared services for sewer already with 10 communities, and then we have shared services for water from East Ice.
Right. No, but do you remember how much that study cost us when we did the fire study?
I think it was
about $100,000.
I think I was just going to say it was around 6 figures.
The total cost was over 100.
It was over $100,000.
Not our share.
Not our share.
Yeah, but it cost $100,000 just to say, that was over 10 years ago, right? The feasibility of merging the two fire departments. That's what I'm saying. Does anybody have any idea what it's going to cost, to do this thing properly?
This study, as I said, was estimated at...
Well, you just told me the 30,000 was the one now, and we spent over 100,000 12 years ago.
Your question is the detail level you want. So if you say properly, you could do this, a general report, if you do a report, if you're looking at the two towns in totality, looking at certain things, they don't look at each department as a full study. So the fire department, if you're looking at sharing services of the fire department, it could cost you $100,000. But if you look at the totality of the two, the consultants say they can do it for 80 to 100 total, because you take away some of those specifics that aren't necessarily...
I know what you're saying, but it's like if I go into a doctor, he's going to do a general physical on me, I'm telling him my stomach is bothering me, he doesn't take any x-rays.
Well,
what does that mean?
Beauty is what the eye.
Well, I'm only saying, if you're going to do it right, you're going to have a decent budget.
If you don't want the study to take place, you figure it's going to cost more. And if you do want the study to take place, it probably could be done more.
But this is, what Ed is pointing out, this is not a subject that should be taken lightly, where you say, I'm going to give you 30,000, 40,000, 60,000, and then come up with a conclusion that might destroy two different communities.
I think the commission is going to take care of that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But if they're going to do it, they have to do it right. That's what I'm saying. And that's why the budget should be determined and what's going to be needed.
The commission has to do that. That's one of their first orders of business.
Now,
is to come up with a plan, and the plan includes a budget, and they'll present it to the governing bodies, and then the governing bodies will consider it.
If you come up with $1 million, it'll be a real question. If it's 100,000, I don't think it's going to be an issue.
And remember, it's 100,000, for example, and that's the high side of the current estimate.
Yeah.
At least half of that probably would be paid for by the state.
Right.
And the other part could be prorated between
If that's the case, you're talking about a cost to the village taxpayers of around $22,000 to $23,000.
Right.
But if it's a $250,000 budget, then it's going to cost. By the way, one of the things that can be done, and the state provides you with certain amount of, when I say you, I mean the commission, was